tax lien homes for sale. Welcome back. I'm Ted Thomas, and for the last 30 years, I've been involved as an investor and entrepreneur in tax lien certificates and tax defaulted property. Now, that's nothing more than a subset of the regular real estate. So imagine for a moment purchasing real estate. Think like a single family home or a condominium or a small commercial office building for 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. Well, that's happening in the marketplace today. Even though we're in a booming real estate market, people are buying for 5, 10, 20 cents on the dollar. Of course, you'd find that pretty hard to believe, but it's happening in a certain part of the market. All right, so today's episode is all about tax lien homes for sale. All right, now in this short video, I'm going to reveal about the local counties across the United States. Now, there's over 3,000 counties, but about half of those counties will sell tax lien certificates, and they're sold to anyone that wants to attend the auction. Now, they advertise them online, and they also advertise them in their local newspaper, so anybody can attend that has money that wants to buy a tax lien certificate. Now, throughout the videos, I include some pretty interesting people, at least examples of those people, so that you can kind of get an understanding of this business. Anybody can do it that wants to do it. It's not difficult. It's okay for older people to do this because you don't invest with me or a broker or a company. You're always going to invest directly with the county and get money back from the county. So I call that a predictable, certain, and secure investment. All right, so most property owners that don't pay their property taxes ultimately will come in and pay their taxes and pay the penalty. So tax lien homes are ones that are in default, and the local government now has a problem on the hand. What's the problem the government had? Well, the government uses the revenue from the tax lien certificate to pay the school teachers, to pay the police, to pay the fire department, pay for the hospitals. You're getting the idea. So if the local government isn't able to collect the money, well, then you have a real problem. So the legislature has enacted laws. Everybody must pay property tax. If they don't pay tax, then the local government will have the treasurer put the property in default, and then they will levy the tax. They will try to collect the tax. If they can't, they're going to issue a tax lien certificate. For example, in a place like South Carolina, they're going to have thousands of tax lien certificates in all the counties throughout the state. That means that property owners did not pay their tax. Now, I picked that state simply because if you raised your hand and you bought a tax certificate and you paid, let's say it was on a $200,000 house, and you paid the back taxes of $3,000 or $4,000, wouldn't matter how much. Okay, if you paid the taxes, now you're going to get a certificate. Once you have that certificate, the certificate has promises, has covenants within the certificate that say what's going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get paid an interest rate. The second thing that's going to happen is that if the people don't pay that, you're going to end up with that property. All right, so this is happening in all the counties in that state and half of the other state. All right, so what's happened here? What's happened is someone didn't pay the tax. The person that didn't pay the tax is now in default. So the local county will put them in default and issue a tax lien certificate. When they issue the tax lien certificate, it will be posted on the county website. It'll also be advertised in the newspaper. Anyone that wants to go in and purchase the certificate will buy the certificate, and they will invest directly with the government. If the owner of the defaulted property doesn't come in and pay and buy that certificate back and pay their taxes, then you're going to end up with that property, all right? Now, in the South Carolina, if they don't come in and pay, you don't have to do anything. What's going to happen is the local government is just going to send you the deed to the property. Now, I know that sounds unusual. Today's episode is all about tax lien homes for sale. The rules are going to be different in every single county. Now, the consequence for not paying property tax means that the local government is going to foreclose on the property. In other words, they're going to take it away from you, and they're going to deed that property to whoever paid the taxes. And that's exactly what they do in South Carolina. So if you went there and you paid the tax lien certificate and the people never came in and paid, then the county is going to deed the property to you, and they're going to send you the deed. That's all that had to be done. Now, is that a little more complex in a lot of other states? In a lot of other counties, yes. But here, you're going to get as I mentioned, maybe it was a $200,000 property, and you're only going to pay pennies on the dollar. By that I mean $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 in back taxes. And what better way to buy property? So we're talking about tax lien homes for sale. Now this is a subset of the regular real estate business, and properties are sold for 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar. When you get the property, if you do, what are you going to do with it? Well, there's lots of ways to sell it. You could sell it on Craigslist. You could sell it on eBay. You could sell it on Facebook Marketplace. You could use the multiple listing service. You could put signs on the property. You're getting the idea. Well, if you bought it for 10 cents on the dollar, what I would do is I bought it low, I'd sell it low. So let's say it had a $100,000 value, I would probably sell it for $50,000 or $75,000 just so I could get the cash. Now, would that work for you? Well, it works for everybody, because not only would it work for you because you can make a huge profit, but it works for the county because you paid the tax lien and paid someone else's tax. So who's getting helped here? You're getting help because you're going to be able to make money for your family, and the county's getting help because the taxes are paid, and they can pay the school teachers, and they can fix the roads, and they pay the police department. You're getting the idea. So it's not unusual for people to do this. So in just a few minutes, I'll go over some of this again, and I'll talk about a couple that did the same thing in Phoenix, Arizona, and made over $100,000. All right, so for the student investor, this is a huge win of money. Why? Because if you buy a tax lien certificate, your risk is very low. You're going to invest with the government. When the people come in to pay, 95, 98% will come in and pay. You're going to get all your money back, plus that high rate of return, and the states all have different returns. Some returns could be 10%, 20%. It could be 16 in Arizona, 18 in Florida, 24% in Iowa. You're getting the idea. So you're going to have to learn the rules, but each one of the states can pay whatever that state law says. All right, so let's tell you about my clients that were living in Phoenix, Arizona. They decided they wanted to buy a tax lien certificate. First of all, realized that the certificate was long overdue, and it looked like the people weren't going to pay tax. So they bought the certificate anyway, knowing that if the people didn't pay the tax, they would get the property. So they did go out and look at the property. Turned out it was a nice condominium sitting on a big lake, and it was something that they thought if they ended up with, they would be happy. See, when you buy a tax lien certificate, there's always that small chance that you're going to get the property. So when they bought the property, paid $11,000. By the time they paid the county, and they hired an attorney to do the foreclosure, because the people never came in and paid them, they never got paid. The property owner never got paid, never came in and paid. They had invested $11,000. Well, their $11,000 turned into a heck of an investment because the people didn't come in and pay. So the attorney went through the legal process, and they ended up with the property. The judge awarded them the property. Was that great? So their property, they already knew what the values were because they just checked around the neighborhood. They found out what they were. Property was worth $180,000. They invested $11,000. So you can see the huge margin between $11,000 purchase and the value of the property. That was all going to be theirs when they sold it. So Zillow sold the property for $180,000. After commissions, they got $160,000. So that means for every dollar they invested, they got not only their money back, but another $17. This is happening across America every single day. All right, so why are you watching a video like this? Let's think about that. All right, the important thing is when you're watching a video, you're watching for a reason. You want to learn how to make money. Well, that's what we teach, and when you're watching these videos, you have to think about what's really happening. Now, what happens with most of the people that buy at tax lien auctions, they don't take time to learn about how to sell it. They underestimate the importance of marketing and selling that property. This client did not do that. They didn't make their blunder of not knowing what they were going to do with the property. They knew right away to check on the price because they bought it for $11,000. It was worth $180,000. So you must know how to check out properties. That's easy to do. Just check comparables, go on the MLS, drive around the neighborhood and ask questions. Unfortunately, most sellers don't know how to sell. So it's one of the most important parts of the whole business. So today's episode has been a discussion on tax lien homes for sale. You can buy them for pennies. You really want to be able to sell them. Now, there's been a discussion that's happening in half of the 3,000 counties across the United States. Half of the counties will sell tax defaulted tax liens. Now, those tax liens are going to be advertised on the county website. They're going to also be advertised in the newspaper. You just have to buy the certificate. You invest with the government. You get a check back from the government. If you don't get paid, you get the property. Two things happen with a tax certificate. You either get paid or you get the property. Now, my name is Ted Thomas. I've run out of time. If you decide you want to do this business, keep in mind you should always look at the property to make sure there wasn't a hurricane, there wasn't a fire, there wasn't a windstorm, it was not next to a chicken farm. Why? Because you might end up that you're owning the property and you might have to sell it. So you always want to check the property. Another reason you always want to check the property is so you'll know it and have an exit strategy. So you'll know what you could sell the property for. I'll see you in the next video.